So we're doing this marriage series called Love and Respect. I remember once I was preaching and I said the shortest sentence in the English language is I am. Some guy said, "What's the longest sentence?" I said, "I do." I've been happily married for 40 years. It's longer than I've been alive. I want you to know something about Darlene. There are very, very few things that annoy Darlene, and it makes me feel special to be one of them. Anyways, we're in this series, Love and Respect, and let's just jump right into our opening scripture here in Ephesians 5:33. Paul writes these words, "Nevertheless, each individual among you also is to love his own wife, even as himself. And the wife must see to it that she respects her husband." So we've been talking really the difference between love, which is the need of the woman, and respect, which is the need of the man. And we talked about a crazy cycle. You know that song, "A Crazy Little Thing Called Love," because when we fall in love, we don't realize that men and women are completely different. They're wired different. They think different. They rationalize different. They process different. And so it causes this crazy cycle of miscommunication and then arguments and then more understanding. And so this is what we're talking about. This is why we want to get this understanding out here this morning. Reader's Digest a number of years ago did an article called "Can Love Really Last a Lifetime?" And the sub-article was absolutely only if you ditch the fairy tale of living happily ever after. And there's like some truth to that, right? Like your marriage isn't bad because it's going through storms. Your marriage isn't bad because you're having conflict. That's part of all marriages. That's part of all relationships, isn't it? The idea is to learn the skills to weather those storms so that you come out stronger because of it. A team of scientists recently found out that romantic love, you know, that thing that causes us to fall in love or be swept off our feet, that the chemical changes in the brain when that happens only lasts 18 to 24 months. After that, you're on your own. Just the way it is, right? So all relationships require maintenance, and this is what we're talking about. So we've been talking about first for the men that the word we're looking at is the word couple. So men, when you think of marriage, you need to burn in your mind the fact that you are a couple. You're no longer separate. Like when I got married, I kept on playing basketball every night like I used to be, and Darlene quickly informed me that I was no longer a single man, right? And sometimes guys, it takes a little while. We're used to the single lifestyle, and things have to start changing, and we need to start thinking that we are a we now. We're a couple. And so we said that was an acronym. So the C stood for closeness, that women require closeness. They want to feel connected. They want to feel like they're a valuable part of your world. They need to feel that connectivity. And this is our role, men, that we need to allow them in. We need to make sure that they're close in our relationship. We looked at the O, and that stood for openness, that we need to be a little bit more open than what normally comes natural for us, because guys aren't usually like put it all out on the table all the time out there. We conceal our feelings. We don't let our feelings rule us or show us, be demonstrative. But sometimes we need to be more open. Our wives want us to be more open. That's why they ask so many questions. They want us to share what's going on up here. And wives, we talked about last week that there is a nothing box, that sometimes there's nothing going on up there, right? Sometimes we can go into that zone. The other day I was in my office and I just realized that I had been staring at one of the chairs in there for like about 3 minutes because I was just, in a zone. I was in the nothing box, and it was awesome. And I know you ladies don't have nothing boxes because you're all integrated. You're all touching everything, but that allows you to multitask also, which I think is a survival mechanism for parenting, right? Because like you're the nurturing aspect of parenting, and you need that patience, and so you can multitask. We talked about that the U stands for understanding, that we need to live with our wives in an understanding way. We need to understand the differences and respect those, because if we don't, she's going to react. Now, 85% of all marriage complaints come from women, because they're feeling like this isn't working. We're not a team. We're not connected. We're two separate individuals, and that's not what they want. We talked about that men are left brain, women are right brain. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. The neurological wiring of the brains are literally different. Interesting note, men have larger brains. but it has more white matter, which is the element that protects from bumps, bangs, bruises, and concussions, right? Because guys tend to be a little bit, up in, I hate to use this analogy, but, up in northern Maine, hold my beer and watch this, right? So, we do stupid things sometimes. And so, but women have more gray matter. Yeah, in their brains, right? Okay, well, that fell flat. Women... Women, I don't know if the white matter and gray matter's on this morning. So anyways, women detect emotion faster than men. Guys are not a good reader of emotion. I mean, unless you are sobbing in front of me, I probably won't know there's a problem. Because I tend to have no discernment at all. I just kind of bounce through life. I'm gullible all the time. People could tell me the sky was purple yesterday, and I'd be like, I missed it. But women verbalize those emotions a lot. And this is really interesting. Men have less speech centers in the brain than women do. We talked about that. But this is really interesting. Women use 5 tones while speaking and about 6,000 words a day, where men only use about 3 tones and about 2,000 words a day. And this is what can sometimes make men feel silent and distant. Because guys, when we're silent, we automatically feel distant. The wives feel distant, disconnected from us because we've gone silent. And so another interesting thing is that baby boys were more focused on objects, where baby girls were more focused on connecting with other faces, looking at other faces to get a reflection of what's going on in their world, because they can read emotion and they can read facial expressions. But little boys were interested, give them the rattle, give them a little toy truck or whatever, and that's what they really focus on. And then lastly, men who help with chores in the house have better sex lives. I can't wait to see how many guys go home and clean the house today. So we go on with the acronym, right? So let's look at the P, and the P stands for peacemaker. And guys, listen, I'm going to be harder on you than on the women, because I believe that men do have the role of being the head of the household. And men are the leaders. But Jesus really clarified leadership when he said the leader will be the servant. All right, we think leaders are a responsibility and power and authority, and because of that, there's a certain stigma of fame and importance. No, leaders are servants. And so men, as the leaders of the home, I really believe that the peacemaking aspect falls more on us than on the women. And I'm just going to say that. I remember one time, Darlene and I got into a disagreement. We got a little bit heated, and we kind of withdrew from each other. We drew to our separate little corners, and I was just kind of pouting, and I was like, dude, she's totally wrong. This is totally on her. I admit my stuff. No, you understand, I admit my junk. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But this is totally on her. And I was like, God, this is totally on her. And God said, yeah, but I want you to apologize. And I was like, yeah, but... Do you know those yeah, but arguments never work with God? They never do. You might as well just concede and put up the white flag early, right? So I did. I apologized, and it was wonderful. It immediately healed, and I want to show you why it brought healing. But first, let's look at the scripture in Matthew 19, verse 5. And he said, for this cause a man shall leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. Consequently, they are no longer two, but one flesh. What therefore God has joined together, let no man separate. So there's a lot of words in this sentence that Jesus quotes first from Genesis and then adds a little to it about connectedness, right? This is what the scriptures are saying. There has to be a connectedness that's happening, especially for the heart of a woman to feel whole. It's very important, because the woman, she wants to feel like she matters, like she's part of a team. And I say that again and again. I'm going to keep saying that until we finally get it. But because of the fall, because of man's fall, God doesn't create us. I love, the LGBT community says God created me this way. And it's well, listen, does God create us to be unforgiving? Did we come out of the womb being unforgiving of every single hurt or every single slight or every single, intuition that, comes against, inflection that comes against us? No, we choose to be unforgiving. We choose to be angry. We choose to be hateful. We choose to be spiteful. And we choose to be individualistic. And it's not that God created that way. The fall damaged us permanently and irrevocably. And so we've been fall. So we need times where we can come together and begin to solve problems, because if marriages are rife with problems, which they are, we need the ability to solve those problems. So Paul said this in 1 Corinthians chapter 7. He said, let the husband fulfill the duty to his wife, and likewise also the wife to her husband. The wife does not have authority over her own body, but the husband does. And likewise also the husband does not have authority over his body, but the wife does. So what this is talking about, obviously it's talking about a sexual relationship, and that there's a huge need for that intimacy, both for different reasons, but still needs that are being met through intimacy. But Paul is saying that even when there are problems, that we need to lay down our individual rights. Remember, the pathway of the gospel is first crucifixion, then new life, right? First the cross, then the crown. And so we lay down our rights. This is nothing more than emotional intelligence. That we can have emotional intelligence enough and be smart enough to know that I don't have to be right all the time. And sometimes it's just easier to concede for the sake of peace. Because, like sometimes people get in arguments over some of the stupidest things. And I've heard that again and again in counseling. Like, we had a great big blowout, and really in hindsight, it was kind of stupid. Well, then don't be stupid. Have emotional intelligence and know what hills. Listen, there's very few hills to die on. There really are. There's really very few. They're not going to make a kingdom difference when we stand before God. So we have to be able to work out conflict. And sometimes when conflict just can't be worked out and we have to disagree, we look at what Paul says in Ephesians 5:21, and be subject to one another in the fear of Christ. So it's not just the wife that needs to be subjected to her husband or subject to her husband, but we need to be subject to one another. This is a team. It's not a competition. When you get married, you become a team. And together as a team, you face and conquer the challenges that come to you. So how we solve conflict, because we solve conflict differently between the sexes. So imagine two little girls, and they're playing hopscotch. And all of a sudden, something happens, and they have this big blowout. And they get really mad at each other, and they stomp off, and they go their separate ways. And if for guys, it would be like, why did they even do that? For girls, it wasn't about playing hopscotch. It was about connecting. And so when something happened and they felt disconnect, they got angry and they separated, they stewed about it, but then they came back together, not to talk about the game, but to vent their feelings. Well, I felt this when you said that. Because girls intuitively know that in that discussion, there's going to be a healing and a coming back together, and it will restore the connectivity, the relationship, and then they'll be good. You see how guys are probably thinking like what? Now let's look at boys, okay? So you got these two little boys, and they're playing baseball. And they're on two different teams, but they're best friends. The first thing that happens is it takes half the day to iron out all the rules. Because for boys, it's all about the game. We are not there to connect. We are not there to feel feelings. We are there to play a game, have fun, and win. Right? And so all of a sudden, the batter and the catcher get in a big argument over a pitch that was called, whatever, a ball or a strike. And they get in this big argument, and they're huffing and puffing and puffing. So what happens? So finally, the alpha out there in right field says, it was a foul. And that solves it right there. There's no more argument. And they go back to playing the game. Later on, after the game, they go out for pizza. There's not a problem. If the one would bring it up and say, hey, I'm really sorry, I lost my cool, the other one would say, just drop it. Because for guys, it wasn't about connecting, it was about the game. But for women, it's about connecting, right? That's what it's all about. So this is huge in being able to solve problems. This is why 10 years, 18 years after when we used to play paintball out here, we'd have 20 guys out here after church playing paintball before we built the new building and we lost all the woods out here. We'd have huge paintball wars. And this is why after, 20 years later, Craig Carson and I are still friends, because he used to cheat incessantly. But we're still friends because that was just the game, right? Anyway. One guy breaks a paintball gun, the other guy freaks out, gets really mad, but then he processes it and he's like, well, I can probably fix it. And so they're not connecting. They're not like, how did that make you feel? It's like, no, you apologize and the other guy, like, just drop it. So recently I was doing a hike with Dave Salois and Ian Kenny, and we were hiking the moats up north. And right off the bat, like, it's been a long time since the three of us had hiked together. And right off the bat, like, Ian made a comment that really ticked me off. And like, I turned and started dropping my backpack because I was ready to go full. I mean, oh yeah, it was going to be all in. This was going to be like a knockdown. I was ready for the brawl. Win, lose, or draw, I didn't even care at that moment. I was seeing red, my fists were clenched, and I was ready to go fisticuffs. And so like, it kind of got de-escalated, and we hiked in silence. Like, nobody's trying to connect, nobody's trying to solve it, and give it time. And then after a while, like, everything warms up, and we're all having fun. And then we're coming down, and I thought, like, I should never lose my cool to that extent anyway. So I said, Ian, like, he goes, oh, forget about it. Right? Because it was about the hike. We were there to hike. We're not there to, like, bond and connect necessarily, because they're jerks. So, I mean, I'm just there. I'm just there. Now Keith's here, and I know he's going to be texting the guys as soon as he gets home. He says, you're going to have to listen to his message today. But we're about the hike, because honestly, they abuse me incessantly. I mean, they abuse me, and I never do anything wrong. I never do anything wrong. I got to tell you a story. It has nothing to do with the message, in a way. So I'm hiking with a guy Friday. Was this Friday or Saturday? Friday. So I'm hiking with a guy Friday. All right, I got to confess, I'm a jerk. I'm going to put it out there right now. So I'm hiking with this guy that I've rarely ever hiked with, right? And he says, I have to go to the bathroom. I have to pee. I'm like, yeah, sure. I said, just stay there, and I'm going to go down the trail. And so I probably get 60 feet away and turn and see that he's getting ready to go. And I just go, hey, how you folks doing? Nice to see you today, right? I turn around, and he's like this. He's zipped up, and he's coming down the trail. And then he looks and he goes, there's nobody there, is there? And I'm like, dude, I'm so sorry. Just go ahead and pee. And he goes, you think I can do it now? Right? So yeah, I guess sometimes I do deserve some of the harassing, but not the level that I normally get. So let's just put that out there. Okay, so, but this is what happens. In marriage, something happens. There's a little riff. And then after a couple hours, the guy says, just drop it. But the woman can't, because it's not about whatever it's about. It's about staying connected. So the woman can't just drop it until she feels like you're not mad at her. She needs to know that because see, like, we guys can literally say, just drop it, and we're not mad at that point. Like, it's gone. But women need to know that we're okay before they can drop it. And she needs resolution. And if you never give her that resolution, this is why 5 years later you get another tiff, and she said, hey, how about back there in 2019, buddy, when this happened, right? Because there was never closure there. There was never resolution. And so you got to remember, it goes into the brain and then it comes tumbling back out. But guys, you do need to apologize. Now listen, ladies, when you apologize, which happens, I think, on a leap year. I got to laugh out of the guys. Come on, that's got to be worth something. Okay, so when you apologize, ladies, when you apologize and you say, I'm sorry, you do it because you know it's going to increase love. You know it's going to bring resolution and it's going to increase love. But when guys feel like they have to say, I'm sorry, they fear they're going to lose respect. They fear you're trying to get into their brain to hold something over them that's disrespectful. And this is why love and respect are so different with men and women. Women want the love. They only want to know. Listen, women don't want information as much as they want correspondence and emotional sharing and connectivity. Where guys, we only share information. We don't do the whole emotional thing that much. But here's the thing, guys. If you do apologize, you're literally healing her soul, which will open her up for intimacy. And that's where we get the term, right? Make up intimacy. I'm not even going to use the other word. That's where we get that term. That's where it comes from. Like, oh, we had a big, big fight, but then we had make up closeness. And everything is good now. We're just awesome. So there was a healing that took place. So you just need to remember that she matters. She needs to know that she matters to you, and that needs to be that connectivity. Okay, so P, peacemaking. Guys, I really believe like 80% of that is on us. I'm just going to throw it out there. It's our job, right? Then we go to the L, and we're going to be talking about loyalty. Malachi chapter 2, verse 14 says this. Yet you say, for what reason? Because the Lord has been a witness between you and the wife of your youth, against whom you have dealt treacherously, though she is your companion and your wife by covenant. And so here, this companionship that requires loyalty, because loyalty builds trust, and trust is the foundation for every relationship. Whether it's at work, whether it's with classmates or school or in church or whatever, there's got to be a level of trust, that we trust people, right? This is why women will sometimes look at their husband and say, do you love me? And the guy looks back and says, I said it 20 years ago, and if it changes, I'll let you know, right? I mean, because that, like, I said it, I haven't changed my mind. If I did, you'd be the first to know, but I haven't. But the women need that reassurance from time to time. They want to know, do you love me? And guys, like, listen, I know, we clown around a lot, but when you look at your wife, you've been married 25 years or whatever, and you look at your wife and you say, hey, if you keep yourself looking good, I won't trade you in for a new model. Like, that crushes their spirit. That crushes their spirit, because they are giving themselves to you. And again, remember, they're not asking for information. They're asking for reassurance. It would be like if she came up to you and said, hey, Bill down the street, he's got a job that he makes so much money, he doesn't even know what to do with it. Why don't you get a job like that? As guys, being providers, having that instinct to be provider, we wouldn't like that one little bit. And so it goes both ways, right? And it hurts her when you look at other women. Now, women, you do need to understand that men are sight-oriented. You are connected-oriented, emotional-oriented, relational-oriented. Men are sight-oriented. And that's why, like, it doesn't take much. You know what I mean? Sometimes you walk by a Cosmopolitan magazine, and I mean, there's women scantily clothed all over in our society. We have highly over-sexualized our society to the point of breaking. And now we're doing it with little children. We're introducing them even to other concepts of gender dysphoria, at young age, and they're not geared to even be exposed to this kind of stuff, right? So, but Job said this, Job chapter 31, verse 1, I've made a covenant with my eyes. How could I gaze at a virgin? And so we need to understand that we do have a relationship to be loyal to our wives at all times. And we also need to understand that Christian marriages and Christian relationships have better sex lives more times than not than any other aspect, because men understand covenant, that this is a covenant, and they understand trust and connectedness, that we want our wives connected. And look at this. This leads marriage loyalty meets the need for affection and sexual intimacy. Marriage loyalty meets the need for companionship. Marriage loyalty meets the need for a healthy family. Marriage loyalty meets the needs for conversation. Get that one up there. And lastly, marriage loyalty meets the needs for financial security. I mean, it takes both working towards this, but it really does work. So years ago, way before Tom Brady, Roger Staubach was one of the most winning quarterbacks in football. He played for the Dallas Cowboys, Roger Staubach did. And they were interviewing him once, and they said, like, how do you feel about, like, all the other guys on your team, that they're all single, and they, whatever city they go in, they meet a new, fling or whatever. And he started laughing. He goes, are you kidding me? He goes, I'm a married man. He goes, I have 3 times as much sex as these guys do, right? Because he's married, because he's more sexually fulfilled. See, our society tells us you're fulfilled by numbers, by as many different partners as possible. But that's not true at all. And so there's this just a blessing of being in a Christian marriage. So Genesis chapter 2, verse 24 and 25 again says this, and let's look at this. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother, be joined to his wife, and they will become one flesh. And the man and his wife were both naked and not ashamed. So let's look at this. The man will leave father and mother, and that's a separation. Guys more than girls move away from home. That's just a statistic. Guys more than girls actually move away from home, even at younger ages. And there's something about guys where after a while, we start not liking our parents. And that's sort of like God's way of kicking us out of the nest, right? Like you got to get out there and you got to fly. So you leave your father and mother, but then you'll be joined to your wife. And here's a bonding. And this is now becoming a permanent bonding. There's a commitment that's happening. And they will become one flesh, and this is now a unity. So it's interesting because two family units will be fractured to a degree to create another unit. It's almost like imagine a husband and wife coming together and giving birth to a baby. Two families come together and give birth to another diversified unit, a separate marriage unit, that they're going to form their marriage according to how they want to define it. And it may not look like either one of them. Like I tell people in premarital coaching, like, listen, you need to understand, you're coming from two different worlds. You're coming from two different backgrounds. You're not just marrying just a man and a woman and the differences between the genders. You're also marrying two different histories. You're bringing these two family histories together. You know, somebody, it may be like a loud family, that boy around the dinner table is rocking, and you might come from like a really quiet family, and that's like unnerving, right? It's just different. It's different. And so, like I know, like growing up in our family, we had a mom and a dad, and there was 5 siblings. And then after a while, like they started moving out and getting married, and ended up starting 5 separate families. And so this is what happens. So there's this cleaving. And so then it says, and they were both naked and not ashamed, and this is intimacy. And the reason they were naked and not ashamed, because one of the biggest fears known to man is rejection. And they weren't ashamed. They realized there's no rejection in this relationship because we're giving ourselves to one another. We're becoming one in the eyes of God. And this is so important that we understand this. So really quickly here, 10 building blocks to a marriage. Number 1, it is a lifelong commitment. And when we understand that, like I will not do a wedding when people want to change the traditional vow from as long as we both shall live to as long as we both shall love. I won't even do that wedding service. If they say that's the vow we want to have, I'm like, find somebody else then. Because love as we view it in American culture is an emotion. An emotion is as fickle as a leaf in a windstorm. It's blown all over the place. Now, we understand biblical love, agape love, unconditional love, is a lifetime love. It's a commitment love. I'm committed to you. I'm not marrying you just because I'm romantically attracted to you. I'm marrying you because I am willing to commit to you for the long haul. And that's why we have the vows through sickness and health and, richer and poorer, to death do us part. And so what does that do? That begins to bring loyalty into the picture. The second one is a shared identity. You're a shared identity. You are no longer me and her, you're us. You are now a we. We're going to go over here, and we are now a team. And we're identified by even taking last names, right? Like we even share the last name. And boy, I'm going to say something. I'm going to go on a limb. I don't believe in joint checking accounts at all. Like you should have shared checking accounts. Like you should have shared banking. You're a team, for crying out loud. I can't stand it when people say, well, we're going to have separate checking accounts after we're married and separate bank accounts and separate finances. No. How can you do that? How can you have any part of your life separate when you are one team working together? That sets the tone of I'm doing this just in case. I can still have an escape route. Don't do that. Darlene and I made a vow between ourselves that no matter what happened, we would never even let the word divorce come out of our mouths. Because when you say it, you open the door of possibility that it's there and it's available. And we just said, we won't even, I mean, I've heard the word murder a few times, but I've never, And sometimes I wonder, I'm out of shape and I'm getting older and I'm hiking these mountains and she keeps encouraging me like, you go bigger, you can do. Is $3.5 million too much for a life insurance policy? I'm asking for a friend. Okay. So a shared identity. The next one is absolute faithfulness. And again, this is trust. Why is trust so important? Because there's safety in trust. Trust means that I trust you explicitly, that even if there's hardship, we're not going to bail. We're not going to jump ship. We will go down with this ship before we jump ship, which forces us to look for options and find diplomatic ways of solving our problems and our issues. And then the more problems we solve over years, 40 years now, then the more we know any problem that comes up as a team, we can solve it. We can beat it because we're a team and we're an unstoppable team, dynamic duo. So trust is so important. Number 4, well-defined roles. And again, this is why we're doing this whole thing on love and respect, that we understand that our roles are different. We think different, we process different, we feel different, we act differently, we're physiologically different, biologically different, hormonally different, chemically different. In every imaginable way, we are different from each other. And I remember once I was doing marriage counseling for a couple they were going to get divorced. And as a last ditch, let's go see Pastor Ken. They came in, and as I started to ask questions and unearth the issues that were going on, do you know why they were ready to get divorced? They got a puppy. They bought a puppy. Why do people do that to themselves? They bought a puppy. Now, you know how much work puppies are, and they never defined who was going to take care of the puppy. They just thought, we're going to get a puppy, he's going to take care of it. We're going to get a puppy, she's going to take care of it. And it just unleashed World War III. Like at that point, give me the puppy, 122 round, it's gone, and you guys are all, come on. That's horrible. No, I would definitely bring it to the SPCA. Carrie is standing up in protest. So, seriously, no. Okay, so defined roles, right? Unreserved love. And here, guys, this is 100% your responsibility. That you love her the way she needs to be loved. You let her in. You allow her to feel connected. You make sure that keeps working and that firing on all cylinders. Unreserved respect, which we haven't even gotten to that. Next week we'll get into it. But ladies, that's going to be 100% your job, that you see to it you respect your husband. The next one is sexual fulfillment. It's so important that we understand that. It's part of the whole marriage blessing. Number 8, mutual submission. Learn to laugh together. Like, stop taking yourselves so serious. Learn to laugh together, laugh a lot through life. Don't be so critical. Don't be negative. Don't be so serious over everything, and make life fun, because life is too short. Enjoy the partner of your relationship. Number 9, open communication. Nobody's got a crystal ball. Sometimes women get mad and they go silent, and like the guy doesn't even know what happened. Why? But so be able to communicate in a safe environment, knowing that kind of conflict is actually healthy. It's healthy because you're going to weather that storm. You're going to find the options. You're going to find the solutions. You're going to move forward. You're going to be stronger for it. So open communication is so important. And then lastly, spiritual companionship. And spiritual companionship is very, very important. That you talk about the things of God. You talk about the things of the Lord. You talk about Scripture. And I know I've shared this before, but like Darlene and I think I heard it somewhere. It wasn't, obviously unique. But a lot of times when we go to bed, we'll hold hands and we'll pray. And the way we do it is like, I will say a prayer about something. Like maybe I'll pray about the grandkids. And then when I'm done, I'll just squeeze her hand. And then she'll pray about something else, something in work or something like that, and then she'll squeeze my hand, and then I'll pray. So we're holding hands, which is connectivity, and we're letting each other know when I'm done and the other one can pray. And it just goes back and forth, and we'll pray like that for about 5 minutes or so, 6 minutes or so, and then we'll just nod off and go to sleep. And that's a spiritual connectivity that's very, very important in a relationship, because that's really where the strength is coming from. Okay, so P, peacemakers. Guys, that's on you. L, loyalty. That's really on both of us. And then, how to create self-esteem. Did I already go over that? No, I'm not going to tell it. Am I missing an entire page? That would be scary. Okay. Okay, so there you go. Let's look at it. How a man should love his wife. Okay, so this is just the whole couple thing. It's the E. Thank you for clarifying that. You guys left me hanging. I'm like, I think somebody said it's the E. Okay, so E stands for esteem. Let's look at First Peter again. We looked at this verse a few times because there's a lot in it. You husbands, in the same way, live with your wives in an understanding manner. And we talked about that's the you, and understand. We need to understand as someone who is weaker, since she's a woman, and show her honor as a fellow heir of grace of life, so that your prayers will not be hindered. So here, this showing her honor is basically valuing her as an equal and helping her identity. Now, let me just say something real quickly about this. Peter's very explicit to say why this is important. Why should you live with your wife in a certain way with understanding and valuing her as being a weaker vessel? Listen, if you're moving stuff, like let's say you're moving to a new apartment or a new house or something like that, and you're moving stuff, right? And you've got a crate full of like just clothing, or you throw it in the car. You got another crate load of like just Tupperware boxes in the car. And then you got a box of like crystal. Right now, all of a sudden, it's like you're handling it differently. It's more valuable. It's easily damaged. And this is how we respond to our wives. We can damage their esteem. We can damage their feelings so easily. So we handle them with respect and honor and love. Peter says we do this so that our prayers will not be hindered. Now, he doesn't say, because he's talking to men here primarily, and he's not saying that your prayers will be stopped or completely ineffective. He's just saying that they're going to be hindered. Why is that? Well, remember, Jesus said, if any two on earth agrees touching anything, it'll be done by our Father in heaven. So Jesus builds into marriage this little clause that you are automatically a dynamic duo of prayer. Because now there's two of us that can pray. Because if I'm just by myself or if I'm excluding her, my prayers are going to be hindered. They're not going to be as powerful as they could be if we are praying in agreement. So I don't have to go around looking for somebody, hey, would you agree with me in prayer? Would you agree? I've got it built right in to the marriage union. We can pray and automatically have that unity where Jesus said, whatever two touch anything on earth, it will be done by our Father in heaven. So this is very, very important that we understand this. And so we give them special honor, right? Like they love this, like, little gifts, little flowers, take them to a special place, give them cards from time to time. And don't be like a couple who years ago, when I first came here, there was a couple that came into the church probably a year after I had been here, an older couple. And they told me the story how about once they had a major knockdown, drag-out argument, and they weren't speaking to each other for like over a week. And then she got a card in the mail, and she thought, and she opened it, she opened the card and took it out, and on the front, it said, only a beautiful princess can open this card. And she opened it, on the inside, it said, or a witch like you. So that's not the best way of building bridges. It is hysterical, though, but it's not the best way of building bridges. So like guys, she's constantly going to be turning to you for reassurance, right? She doesn't necessarily need a leader as much as she needs a partner. And women, let me just say something. If you're the leader in your home, it is not biblically balanced. But her self-image is determined by your image of her. This is why I said you can either appreciate the value or depreciate the value of your wife by how you treat her. Because her self-image is going to be determined by your image of her. That's so important to understand that. She's going to come to you with issues that you don't think are important, but they're important to her. And this is where, again, you don't have to solve them. You just have to listen to them and, say, oh, I get it. I understand it. That's something. And then validation, that matters to her, to be validated. So what builds her self-esteem is to know that you view yourself as a team. This builds her self-esteem, that you view like we're a team. I don't view just me doing this or whatever. No, we're a team. We're going through life together, and we're a team. I remember years ago, I was trying to help a couple that I finally realized like I couldn't help because they viewed their conflict as like having fallen in a pit, and they couldn't get out without stepping on the other one to get out. So it was always this he said, she said, just this constant finding fault constantly. And then I began to realize that because of their backgrounds and the family units they came out of, they actually were comfortable with living in constant conflict. I don't like that. I want peace in my life. I want peace in my home. I don't want conflict. But some people are wired differently, and they just fed off of conflict constantly. And no matter what options were available for them to move forward, they just simply couldn't or wouldn't move forward. It was very, very unnerving. It was very sad. But guys, you know how it is. Like sometimes you're walking on the beach together, and then you see this like little rock, and without saying anything, you pick it up and put it in your pocket. And then like the next day, you put a little bow on it with a card saying, I loved spending time with you. Like, remember when I did that, Darlene? Because I don't. She's over there nodding like, whatever you say. I'll scab up a pine cone or something from the backyard. But they really like, and ladies, you need to understand, like, it's not natural for guys to give little rocks to each other or, things like little gifts to each other. We normally don't do that. But our culture is changing and challenging men to understand women better. I think that was probably something good that came out of the women's movement, that, they were demanding respect. And I get that. They wanted men to really understand where they were coming from. But now the challenge is for women to understand men also. And none of this male toxicity. Everything is bad because it's masculine toxicity, and that's what's wrong with our culture. No, you need to understand men, and that's going to come next week. So we'll see how many ladies get sick before church next week. Okay. I want to wrap it up real quick here, and I want to talk to you men about your daughters. So sometimes you have more than one woman in your life, right? Because you have your wife, and then you have daughters. And what is the male responsibility to daughters? Oh, it is so important. It's so important. Guys, you set the tone for their futures. You set the tone for their futures. One of the most important things is dad-daughter date nights. That you take your daughter, when she's old enough, like when she's 14, 13, 14, in her teen years, you take her out on dates. And on those dates, you're going to teach her how she should expect a man to treat her, right? You're gonna treat her. You're gonna do nice things for her. You're gonna open the doors for her. You're gonna do things to demonstrate this is the kind of guy you want to look for when you get married. It's so important. You need to have a relationship with your daughter, and that means, oh my gosh, that means listening to them. I would just, because sometimes Janelle would have a lot of drama, and she'd come home and I would just sit there and listen. Like the guy in the film. That sounds tough. Just listening. It just, that sounds hard. That sounds tough. But it was funny because Janelle was like super close to dad until she turned 13. And then it was like a switch went, and she pulled away from me, and it was all about mom until she was probably in her 20s. And then in her 20s, all of a sudden, dad became like the second incarnation. I mean, like dad was everything, like my dad is awesome. And just, but there was that separation time where she was experiencing womanhood and pulling away from men that she didn't understand. But she had an example sown in her life. So these are like 5 things, guys, that you should teach your children right off the bat as soon as you can. Number 1, finish high school and get a good education. No matter what, finish school. And if you're going to go on to a higher education, that's great. But I would caution you that most of the secular schools of higher education are indoctrination centers that after 4 years, don't be surprised if your kid doesn't believe in Jesus anymore. It's not something that happens by accident. They have an agenda to de-Christianize kids. It's literally out there, right? And so just beware of that. And if you're good with that, then God bless you. But maybe you want to look at a Christian college. Secondly, is you instruct them to wait until they're out of the teen years before getting married. Now, I know that there's been, I'm thinking of Dave and Hope Enos, a wonderful, wonderful couple. I think they got married in their teens, like right out of high school. And they've been married for like, a million years. They got great grandkids now. But by and large, wait until you're out of your teen years. The reason is again, because men's prefrontal cortex, which is the part where we discern between cause and effect. All right? So, like, if I do 90 down the highway, I'll get a ticket. But they just don't think that way. Just think this is fun, and then they get a ticket. I was so glad when Tim lost his motorcycle license for 2 years. I was so glad because he was going to kill himself on that. I saw YouTube videos of him doing 150 on his motorcycle. I saw videos of him doing 90 down 101, and the GoPro camera's on the gas tank, and then all of a sudden you see blue sky because he's riding a wheelie at 90 miles an hour down 101. And then to make things matters worse, it wasn't until like he's an adult and he's married, he's got kids. He's like, well, actually, Dad, I remind him that story. Like, you remember when you did 150 and my stomach was flip-flopping in my chest? And he goes, well, actually, Dad, I actually hit 200 once. And I'm like, cause and effect, right? Like 200, you ain't surviving. 150, you ain't surviving. I remember he told me, I said, Tim, like if you wipe out, that's the end for you. No, Dad, I got a $400 helmet. And I was like, yes, and your head will still look pretty inside the helmet, but the rest of you will be disintegrated, like you'll be gone. But teach them to wait until they're out of the teen years. Thirdly, tell them to wait until having children until after they've been married 2 years. I believe this is really important. This was counsel that my pastor gave me. He said, don't have kids until you've been at least married for 2 years. So you get to enjoy the married life, and you can have spontaneity. Like, I mean, boy, there was times where Darlene and I would just wake up on Saturday morning and what do you want to do today? Let's go here, and we're off. And then the kids came and it was like, oh my God, like we're Abraham packing up all the tents, getting ready to move across the desert. We're leaving with 4 suitcases and, it was incredible. So like have that 2 years. Thirdly, teach all your kids, not just your daughters, to have a smaller wedding. Americans nowadays are spending between $20,000 and $100,000 on weddings. And that's all fine and good, especially if you can afford it. But what you need to understand is that the wedding does not make the marriage. The wedding is a one-day boom and it's done, and then it's the marriage from then on. So maybe just go a little less expensive and not get saddled with debt or anything like that. And then lastly, teach your daughters to ask a lot of their friends and adults what they think of her new boyfriend. So important, right? Like, because sometimes women can emotionally get involved and fall in love sometimes faster than guys. And there's all the stories out there, right? Well, I wouldn't take a car unless I drove it first, and, trying to just have sexual relations. And no. Right? Teach them to ask other people, hey, what do you think about my new boyfriend? And teach them to just not look up, oh, he's a hunk, he's a beefcake, he's bussin', for real. You like teach them. Didn't think this 66-year-old fart had it in him, did you? So that's slang that I find from our youth pastor, Mike. I forgot what I was going to say now. Teach them to watch their possible future mate, how he treats his parents, because that's how he's going to treat you. How he treats waiters and waitresses, because that's how he's going to treat you. I was going to say how he drives in traffic, but that's probably wouldn't be fair to me. Darlene's prayer life excels when I'm driving. So anyways, so those are things just like dads, just like, put that in the back burner. If you have daughters, you can use it now, but otherwise, definitely use it with your daughters. Okay, let's pray. I'm going to pray, going to close in prayer, and when I'm done, again, if you want to just get over here and pray by yourself, no one will bother you. If you want somebody to agree with you in prayer, anoint you with oil, lay hands on you, whatever, then over here, Michael, maybe you can cue some music up ready to go here in just a minute. But Father, we are so thankful for this series. There's so much information that we've been going through, but it's all so valuable. And little by little, God, you want to shape us into the men and women that have strong, healthy Christian marriages that reflect the glory of God, because marriage was your idea. It did not come from man's mind. It did not come from the woman's mind. It was you that brought them together and performed that first ceremony in the Garden of Eden. And I'm so thankful, God, that you know how to do it, and it's done right. And so bless the marriages that are here today. Those that are strong, make them stronger still. Those that are struggling, bring them through victorious, that they can say, look at the good things that God has done for us, because we are an us. We are a team. We are a couple. And we thank you for these things in Jesus' name. Everyone said, amen and amen. Hey, God bless you. Have a wonderful day.